a risk management specialist, joining us now on the upside to talk about workplace bullying and which stand by gets hostile. Kovani, hello and welcome to the upside.
Hello, thank you so much for having me.
Am I saying your name right?
Kovani, yes.
Kovani. We want to talk about workplace bullying.
Think
How do you know you're being bullied in the workplace?
I think there's quite a few signs that you need to look out for, and I base this on my
Mm,
own personal experiences as well as the various individuals that I mentor on a monthly basis. There's quite a few signs that I would suggest you look
sure.
out for. It usually starts with our gut feeling, which often we don't want to recognize. We always believe that
Mm,
things will get better or it's just a feeling. But I think if that feeling starts to prolong within yourself, or you just feel like something isn't
mm,
right within the space that you find yourself in, I think it's important to step back, firstly, and look at the various patterns that have been created. Because I often, when I mentor people, I tell them that workplace bullying could be one incident, but it usually is an incident followed by a series of retaliative behaviors. And that is sort of what sustains
mm-hmm.
it to a point where you just wake up one day and you feel completely despondent and miserable. So it is important for you when you're starting to feel like something isn't right, or suddenly you're being treated differently, or whatever the case may be, you're being sidelined, you're being excluded from meetings, etc., that you start to create your own audit trail, that you start documenting everything, and then of course consult a mentor, a coach, and also a labor lawyer, which I think is very very important. And a lot of women in particular in corporate spaces tend to overlook this. The first thing they do is go to
Mm,
HR and pour their heart out and cry
mm,
their eyes out. And yeah, my suggestion is always to consult a labor lawyer first before doing anything else.
mm. But I feel like there's a thin line between assertiveness and control,
Mm.
general conflict or personality clashes versus actual abuse. I mean, where do we draw the fine line between the two?
Yes, I think the law helps us a lot with drawing that fine line. The labor relations law, as well as the code of conduct, good conduct in South Africa. There is a specific section on harassment, and harassment falls under the ambit of what we call corporate GBV. That is the technical term for it. And it includes
Oh.
intimidation, threat, bullying. It includes being excluded, having your work given away to colleagues or other people. There's a whole long list of items, and I think what's very important in terms of the definition is that it is aimed at belittling and demeaning a particular human being. And that's really when it starts to
Mm.
enter the ambit of being, harassment and bullying. The law is quite specific around the various elements that need to be in place before you can actually term it to be harassment or corporate GBV for that matter.
What if it's a bit more sinister than that? It's not black and white. It's not as obvious because that's also what a lot of people get away with
Mm,
and do with other people. So it's not just the one person that's bullying you. They've got three or four other people who have also decided that they don't
yes.
like you and they're also going to make your life miserable. And then you become the outlier and the problem because you're picking up on this. How do you manage that, and what is the best way to kind of get yourself out of that, or to even document what's
Mm,
happening to you?
yes.
Because it's small things that you also have to double check yourself if you're imagining things or if it's actually really happening the way that it's happening. And it's
Yes.
also in interactions that you don't necessarily do in front of other people, so they can't be documented. If someone says they were bullied, how
Yes.
show me.
Sure, that's a really good question. I love that you say sinister because I think we'd
Mm,
agree that there's a lot of cruelty in the world these days. And what is very important is that you are able to keep accurate records. And when I say records, I don't only mean on paper. I mean that if you're picking up a
mm-hmm.
pattern and you're feeling something is not right, start to use your phone. I guess this is the power of technology. To be able to go into those meetings, to record your meetings, so that later on you don't end up, being gaslit. Because I think a lot of victims are facing the fact that after these interactions, they feel like they're going insane because they are convinced
Mm,
otherwise. You've got this person in a position of power often, that just wants to misuse their power and will tell you that that's not what happened, or that's not the way I experienced it, or the very common one, especially for women in leadership positions, is you're so sensitive, why didn't you take it as a joke, or I just meant it as a joke. So I think those are really, really important concepts. And certainly what you've alluded to as well being what we call workplace mobbing. So that means one person doesn't like you, and if that's the boss, then he would often recruit other people in his circle or in his influence of control, and that we call workplace mobbing. So now it's not just coming from one person, it's coming from 4 or 5 people. Don't wait at this point, guys. Get yourself a labor lawyer. We spend a lot of money on other things that maybe we don't always need, but I think it's very important to have almost a little emergency fund that you can keep for any of these issues that arise within a workspace.
So we report the matter, we go to HR, the matter is resolved through mediation. So no one really moves their jobs or their positions, but we
Right.
kind of find a common ground. How do you navigate the repair in workplace dynamics now, post all that entire process? Because ultimately now the dynamics have also shifted. So how do you manage that dynamic shift between the two people?
I think, there are certain scenarios that can be remedied, and on the other end, there are certain scenarios that cannot be remedied. So I think it's based on the nature of what you're dealing with. In some of the cases I've looked at, harassment, sexual harassment, corporate GBV over sustained periods is often not something that you and the perpetrator can force to make work. Legally it doesn't make sense. The trust relationship has been depleted. So in that point, you would then want to consider, how can I find myself a role within the company outside of this particular individual. So I think that's very important. And the other thing is sometimes you get into a situation where, the employer wants to repair something but really doesn't want to repair, just wants to make the risk go away. And after that, you could be faced with a series of retaliative behaviors, and now you're seeing, you're not getting the same increase as everyone else, you're getting passed over for promotions. And I think it's very important that if you have a situation where there is mediation, where there is a remedy, where, there's an action plan implemented, that also you're on alert just to watch to see that there isn't any retaliation that's coming through. Now we deal in a world of emails and on Teams calls, so the world of digital also opens up its own form of risk when it comes to allowing people to sort of perpetrate and do things silently.
For sure. Kovni Mudli is our risk management specialist, joining us on the line, chatting all things workplace bullying. Kovni, how do people get in touch with you if they'd like some advice or just to chat about their situation?
Thank you so much. So I'm actually offering mentor sessions. You can find me on Instagram. It's at Kovni Mudli, and on LinkedIn at Kovni Mudli. I'm not a legal expert, but I have studied and researched the topic, especially within my
Sure.
community, Boss Babes of South Africa. So I can definitely guide you in terms of what are the steps that you need to take. And I think the last
No
parting
way.
advice is just don't wait too long. Don't wait till it's too late.
Shout out to you and Boss Babes Africa. Did know that you were chatting to. Very cool platform. Thank you so much for joining us on the upside.
Thank you so much.
Kovni Mudli, wrapping up our chat this afternoon. It's half past.
Hello, it's the producer here. I just wanted to personally thank you
Thank
so,
you
so
so
much
much.
for
I'm
making
so
some time.
sorry I couldn't come in person, but I really appreciate it.
No worries, no worries. We really appreciate it as well. Hey, please stay warm, stay indoors, be safe, okay?
I will do so. Thank you so much, ma'am.
No, have a good day
Okay.
further on.
Bye.
Bye.
Any